Hi, this is Richard from Garden Elf, where we investigate all things to do with the regeneration of foodscapes. And I'm here at the Quaker Settlement in Whanganui here, and I'm joined by some of the residents here to have a discussion about the activities that they are engaged in. So I've got Nigel here, and Peter, and Mandy, and Michael, and Marilyn, and Marion. Welcome, guys. Nice to have you on board.
Thank you.
So I guess having a little bit of a background on the establishment of the Quaker would be a good place to start. And I know, Michael, you're quite pivotal in the establishment of the buildings and the infrastructure and the setup here. Can you tell us a little bit about the story of how it has been established?
Well, there was a school across the road, and it had a farm, which is the land we're sitting on now. 18, 19 acres. And when the school closed in 1970, there were a group of older Quakers, younger Quakers,
60s.
In their 60s, who said, we could make a community here which could be a focus for Quakers in New Zealand and be a learning place for Quakers. So 4 couples committed to abandoning their living places they'd lived for years and came to an empty field and built those 4 houses.
Wow.
And I was asked, because we lived just up the road, was asked to be involved with the planning and designing the houses and buildings subsequently. But that's now 40 years old.
Wow. And what was the site like when you first moved on? What were the conditions like?
It was a paddock.
Wow.
Sandy.
Barren.
Sandy, it's very sandy country,
Yeah.
very light. 3 wind-blown dunes runs across the property. And there were very few trees, some of which had to be taken down, mature pines and so on. But nearly everything you can see growing on the site has actually been planted.
Wow, wow. And what Marilyn, maybe, what were some of the goals with establishing the Quaker settlement here, and then you kind of moved on to this barren site? What were the kind of primarily goals, do you think?
Well, I think one of the very interesting things was that there's no individual ownership of any land here. And that had to be dealt with in a legal way, and I think it's pretty amazing, really. So we share all the decision making. If we have a tree cut down, everybody's got to agree. So this is a slower process, but everything is basically done as a community.
Wow. And that's quite a change from what you conventionally encounter, isn't it, with your ownership of your house and your space and living together like that, and shared decision making must present its fair share of challenges. What maybe Peter, what kind of challenges do you think you encounter with that kind of shared decision making process and being able to work collaboratively on issues?
Definitely needs a fairly solid time commitment. And I think it's really an acknowledgement that the social cohesion of the group is more important than any one decision. That's really because we don't use voting. We talk things through till we've got to a point of agreement.
Is that?
Which can be quite slow at times.
Yeah, I imagine it's sometimes hard to achieve. Like if you've got people with differing viewpoints on what direction to take, how would you resolve those kind of difficulties?
Well, it might require coming back with a sort of a second bite after people have had a chance to think things over, hear different points of view. There's definitely a bigger time commitment than a sort of traditional situation where you're just voting in the majority. But then the social cohesion that results from that is the long-term benefit.
And one thing, Mandy, I heard you were quite involved with the design of the landscape and the plantings that are here and being quite heavily influenced by permaculture design and how things were laid out. could you speak to us a little bit about the intentions and the design of the plantings here and how it was laid out?
Well, the thing is that that started well before I came on the scene. So when we came to live here 12 years ago, 13 years ago, there was already planting, and there's already a generation at least of people who'd been involved on the land and caring for the land, and so the structure was here, and in fact the design that we've worked towards is not dissimilar to what was originally perceived and kind of looked at in terms of so what we did was just kind of intensified some of those and started to work with some of the structures that were there already in terms of planting and native trees and fruit and nut trees, and then the vegetable gardens. And at that time we found out that Ro Morrow, who's an Australian permaculture teacher, was also a Quaker.
Oh, okay.
And so we got in touch with her, and she's been out several times and supported permaculture teaching here at the settlement, and it's been a really, I think, pivotal influence on us. And at that time we talked about rolling permaculture, so the idea that you already have a structure, and that structure is what's visible, but it's also what's invisible in terms of how our infrastructure and how our community operates with the functioning of it, which you don't necessarily see straight up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of really, as Peter referred to in terms of our decision making, and those things are really important, but also what Mum talked about with the wider Quaker community having an investment, really, because it's owned, the land is owned nationally. So all of what we've done really has been around involving that wider perspective, but it's reliant on who's on the ground and who can, for the land anyway, who's on the ground and who has a passion to do things in particular areas. So the planting that we've done really has looked at zones, permaculture style. Here's the community, and we're quite clustered on the site, so we're only on a fifth of the 18 acres that we that the settlement is, and it's looked at that whole site, and we kind of talked about water, and we talked about our boundaries and how we could work in and around those. The site was already clustered in the terms of where people live, which has made it very convenient and also socially cohesive in a way, because we meet each other frequently at the letterbox. And then the plantings are kind of related to that, so the vegetable gardens are closer to the buildings and sometimes right next to houses. The fruit and nut trees are quite close, things that need a lot of care, and then you get further away. We do have some paddocks that are grazed, and some, and the native plantings are kind of around, particularly around the outside as buffers really, and also the far valley, we're starting to grow a native forest in that dune scape really.
So that sounds all very permaculturally design orientated. Was that the process we used to design it, or was it just an inherent nature of the Quaker community to design in that fashion? And
we overlaid, I think essentially we overlaid a permaculture model and said lots of things fit, and that kind of enriched our view rather than directing or that's my, everybody will have a different opinion about that, but I'm sure. But in a way I think what we did was we overlaid a permaculture model and then said, is there any ways we can improve, and that's always a work in progress, and we don't necessarily say we have to go permaculture, but we've used a lot of those tools about increasing diversity, about using water well, and looking at how water is used and caught and used and cared for in our environment, and particularly in sand dunes that's pretty critical. And matching our kind of understanding, and we want to grow food, we want to live in a bountiful landscape, but we also have some limits to our physical abilities between us to do that, and also some restrictions, as there always are, with what land we have and what water we have available and what grows well here.
And how do you think it changes like your relationship with people? Like instead of having that sense of individuality and owning your land and not being kind of accountable to others, how does it kind of change in how you interact with others and your sense of connection with others if you've got to work in a community and make joint decisions and work together? You know?
People always bring gifts in with them. I mean, there's
yes.
again, this wonderful human experience with people.
But I think that individual community balance is still, I mean, I think it's just something that it brings gifts, but it also has challenges for all of us individually, and those aren't consistent, you know, sometimes it's harder than others. You know, that comes and goes too.
Well, thank you guys for sharing with us today your insights and thoughts of the establishment of the Quaker Settlement. Any last thoughts before we close up today?
Thank you for your challenging questions.
You're welcome.
I quite expected this.
I don't know what we expected.
And where might people go to find out more about the Quaker and its values and its background?
Well, there are publications, something like that here, and people can take them.
Okay.
About the settlement, the website is currently the post a lot. Blog site as well.
You have the National Quaker site as well.
Yeah.
What's the National Quaker site?
Quaker.org.nz is the national one.
And we did feature in a lifestyle magazine as a kind of interesting fold out, which is a delightful photo of two young people learning fencing, I think, and that not the with Nigel, but doing some creating posts and strainers. Yes, we often say you can't just ask one Quaker, you've got to ask a dozen or so, because everyone has a different viewpoint. Because we're all on our own journeys, and that's really, we don't have, well, we say we don't have rules and regulations.
But we don't, until we break them.
Yeah. But these books, you see, are just telling the stories of older Quakers and their spiritual experiences. So we learn from each other.
Thank you guys. And that's an episode of Garden Elf.